The NIL space, man, is not as daunting as a lot of folks think. It is an extra burden of things to think about. But just from a simplicity side of what the NIL entails, it's as simple as you just signing a marketing agreement. Hey, they're going to pay you to do this, and you're going to be able to do that. But what's going on, everybody? My name is Q, aka the People's Planner, and welcome to another episode of the People's Planner podcast, brought to you by the Clever Group. Here, where we share a bunch of different educational insights inside of the worlds of the clients I work with the most, athletes, attorneys, and entrepreneurs. Just giving insights around the world, as well as sharing what I would do if I was your financial planner. So to get into this episode, let's hit the spin wheel to see what our topic is going to be on this one. Ooh, this is going to be fun. So the topic of this one is going to be on navigating the NIL landscape. So really diving into the NIL space for college athletes that are kind of going through that, giving you some insights on that aspect, because this is a huge topic to discuss in general. So tackling the issue of NIL. So first describing what NIL is: name, image, and likeness space in the NCAA. With the rule coming out a couple years ago, it gave athletes the opportunity to finally get some compensation for using their brand and their influence for a lot of different companies. Being able to leverage their mass amount of following, especially with the boost of social media, just being able to leverage that and get some compensation. I do think, though, to kind of kick this off, I think the idea of NIL was overblown and it was made unnecessarily complicated when it's as simple as this is a marketing contract. That's it. It's a marketing agreement. Any person outside of being an athlete in college can have an NIL. It's basically the same thing as if Jake from State Farm, the exact same thing. State Farm pays Jake to promote their business. That's, the exact same layout of the NIL. I think people made it unnecessarily complicated. But anyway, what the recent changes said, the biggest challenge is how to maximize these opportunities and staying eligible. So you are an athlete, you're a star athlete in whatever sport, male or female, and you got a bunch of following behind you, whether it's through Instagram, TikTok, social media, just whatever it is. You have amassed a bunch of following, and you want to be able to leverage that. But at the same time, you want to make sure you leverage it enough to where you're not jeopardizing your eligibility, but you're also being mindful from a financial stability standpoint. You want to make sure you get the most out of the value of the deal that you're putting yourself into, because you don't want to just sign any contract. So diving into the NIL space in general for college athletes, because I was one, I ran track and field. The idea behind it, you want to make sure that the person that you're working with, the company that you're looking to sponsor or be a marketing influence for, it's a partnership. And every partnership, like I mentioned, and I mention this to all my clients in general, is that every partnership is a marriage. It's a marriage. And that's the one thing I'll sit down and iron out. Every deal has to make sense for you, despite how many dollar signs or how many zeros come behind the number. So you want to make sure you understand that you're marrying this person, because you have to understand it's a this for that thing. So you're not just getting paid to do nothing, quote unquote. But the idea is that you're getting paid to promote the company, to advertise the company, to let marketing side of the company come out. They're leveraging your brand. So understanding that can be very daunting, but in a sense it's a marriage, and you want to make sure you marry the right person. You want to just marry anybody. You don't be out here just working with any and every company just because you feel like you can. You don't want to really stretch yourself too thin too, because in the same sense, think about it, you're still a student at the same time. So being able to balance that with your academics, practice, any other side businesses and things you're doing outside of that to advance your career if you're getting prepared for after college. So with the limited resources, man, I know how it is being an athlete. We're limited on time. We're limited on a lot of different things because of how tightly condensed our schedule is. But you got to be able to prioritize yourself in a way to avoid spreading yourself too thin. You don't want to bite off way too much, more than you can chew, because essentially something's going to get sacrificed, right? Something out of all of this is going to get sacrificed, whether it's your grades, whether it's eligibility, whether it's, you actually playing, whether it's the deal itself, whatever it is, something has to is going to take a back seat if you don't be able to prioritize, because your time management is really, really, really important. And also going through it, there's there's the complexity of like navigating the contract side. But ideally, I haven't heard of any issues so far with any, despairing contractual agreements. But understanding the do's and don'ts of what the NIL, not only from NCAA side, but also the compliance within your school. Understanding, making sure you're following within those lines, and just essentially safeguarding yourself to avoid any legal disputes for whatever company you're working with or whatever partner you're helping endorse or sponsor in that aspect. So, the biggest thing I like to sit down and say to a lot of clients from a financial planning standpoint, if I was your financial planner, my biggest role will be to provide that guidance to make sure that every deal is in turn with the lawyer, in turn with the attorney, in turn with compliance of your school and everything else. Every deal makes sense for you. Every deal has to make sense for what you're trying to do, because if it doesn't, then what are we doing? But at the same time, making sure that the money is being allocated in a position where you can maximize on it, but also be able to use it and let it grow and let it do the things it needs to do to prepare, for all of the other ventures you might have outside of sports. So basically, as a financial planner, everything has to align with your goals. If it doesn't align with your goals, I'm not telling you to do it. That's just the end of that conversation. But the idea is just being able to, be strategic around different things and different directions to point you in. The climax, sort of really the turning point of a lot of the stuff when it comes down to NILs, like the biggest, I guess, twist is really the decision-making process. It comes with the risk and rewards of the deals. So this is when you accept the deal, and then like a lot of times you ask to do way more. The things you think you sign up for, it might sound easy whenever you kind of put the deal together, but if it doesn't make sense, sometimes it can burn you out. It can stretch you too thin. I think that's where the turning point of the conversation about NIL is, whenever you put yourself in a position to be, I guess, overstretched. And I haven't heard too much about this aspect yet from the folks I've been working with, but just in a sense, it's just been making sure that we stand on top of things, and it has to align with long-term security, and you're not locking yourself into doing something and going out in the middle of the street and barking like a chicken, right? You don't have a chicken sign spinning around. You don't want to make sure you put yourself in that situation when it comes down to that. But making sure that it does align somewhat with the morals and the things that you have as a character and your personality. It has to be a fit, because if it's not a fit, then that can kind of rub everything off. It can really put everything in a position where, what's the point? Like, what's the purpose of doing all of this? But I could tell you, though, that when it comes down to just weighing the implications and options, I always say, like, always have options. And that's my biggest thing. My job's not to tell you what to do, but it's to give you options. When it comes down to like picking the right deal, it all comes down to like what you believe in, what you want to do, as well as the money, right? It got to make sense money wise, of course, end of the day, because you can only do so much with the time that we do have. But being able to sit down and looking at everything from that aspect, I think, is critical. And then following that, when the money is starting to come in, is being able to understand what to do with it. So being in NIL space, all right, you technically considered self-employed. And the one thing I like to sit down and talk to you guys about is, from a financial planner standpoint, tax planning becomes critical, investment planning becomes critical, cash flow planning becomes critical. This is where we kind of putting the money, the funds that we've been getting in the right bucket, so that way we can know what is being used for what. But taxes has to be taken care of. You got to make sure you're budgeting and you're keeping up with all of the cash flow, so that way you're not burning or spending too much more than you need to at this point in time, and also investing it. So making sure the money is actually doing things for you that align with where you essentially want to be at some point anyway. Because a lot of you guys are getting a bunch of deals in the hundreds of thousands and even some in the millions. Being able to have the right and proper structure in place from that standpoint when the money's coming in is big, mainly due to the fact that a lot of times, like, without that structure, it can be seen as chaos, right? A lot of times you have a lot of sudden wealth come in, and then I don't know what to do with it. You have a bunch of everything and you just start spending things, and then stuff falls under the crack. You forget you got to pay taxes, and that taxes crush everybody. So definitely being able to look at that from that angle too. But mainly another thing too is being aware of a lot of folks in the grass. So a lot of snaky people, a lot of sharky people that's going to come at you and try to either point you in the wrong direction, try to get you to put your money somewhere, trying to get you to do things. This happens in every industry, but I know particularly in the athlete world, it gets bombarded a lot. So being able to kind of dissect and diffuse who is who, as well as understanding, once again, the type of partner that you're marrying, the type of person you're getting in bed with when it comes down to actually drafting these deals. Making sure that you're aware of all of that, I think, is a very prevalent thing, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where now you kind of like, because, especially as an athlete, if you're a star athlete, a prominent athlete, the media can kind of can step in and get whiff of what's going on. Then that can turn into a whole story, and you don't want to put yourself out there in a position where, you're seen as something that's going wrong. Like, nothing's wrong with that, but just the idea of how the media can kind of spin things, it kind of can make it as a bad image. And you don't want to have anything that can damage your reputation when it comes down to this space. But being able to kind of have the guidance, I think that's necessary within, the space of your team and the people that you have in your corner. I think it all ultimately always comes down to that, and having an accountability person. And that's just pretty much the biggest thing I preach in every aspect, right? So having that person to hold you accountable, but also making sure everything has to align with what the hell you want to do. And we're not just out here doing anything just to do anything. So being able to understand that, and like I said, recognizing long-term goals, what exactly you're trying to do after the money's coming in, so that way we can position everything up for that. You want to buy a new house, buy mom a car, do whatever you want to do, like whatever it is, you just want to make sure everything aligns with the goals that you have. I mean, we're not just doing anything that's just sporadic. But at the end of the day, too, when it comes down to that main challenge of just balancing everything, it does come out to, prioritizing time. So time management does become a critical thing. So all of that gets factored into the deals. Just knowing how much, of an athlete, like how much time that you have, and limited time that you have as an athlete, student athlete, especially if you're a star one. I mean, everybody's pulling you and tugging you in every which way. And whoever ideally, whoever your agent is, because I would structure it as a financial planner to say have a team of people with an agent, a lawyer, and a financial planner. So those three things. Sometimes I think that's very rare. You can get all three in one, but an agent and a lawyer can be the same thing. An agent and a financial planner can be the same thing. But having somebody as that middleman to help not only negotiate the deals, but also look at the aspect of what to do with the money after, and somebody that can make sure they can look at the legal aspect of it. So whether it's an agent, attorney, financial planner, but you need to have attorney and financial planner in your corner. So both of those two things should be in your corner. CPAs can be a part of that whole process as well, but from a CPA relationship standpoint, you want to make sure you have somebody that can give the whole financial picture. So a financial plan ideally would be the more ideal thing to look at. But you just want to make sure like all the things are pieced together in a puzzle that, it helps you extend your brand and build your brand, because ultimately you're leveraging this, and this is you doing business now. So now we're in the business world, and your business reputation can be critical. If you do good business with people, people know about that. Other people want to do business with you, especially if you're a prominent star athlete, man. You prime and position yourself to be a businessman, businesswoman. And that allows other, as you kind of move up the rankings, you're working with this company, you get a small deal, but then you start to, develop a lot of traction and a lot of respect for what you do and how you help people from an influence standpoint. You turn into a good business person. And that sets yourself up from a branding aspect that, it allows a lot of other doors and opportunities to open. So the NIL space can take you, far if you know how to navigate it right. A lot of times being able to navigate it without really knowing the nuts and croaks of it, it can be tough. Because I know we're just trying to put some money in our pocket. There may be a lot of athletes that only are just trying to put money in their pocket. They're not really trying to think about the long-term goal at this point. And I understand that. I don't agree with it, but I understand, it's a lot on our minds. We're young, we're in our early 20s, and we're trying to figure out what's what. I'm not really thinking about long term, but I'm saying you start to put those nuggets in your head to think about that, because at some point time it's gonna spin by like this, and you're gonna be in a world of trouble if you don't have it figured out. But being able to provide like unbiased advice as a financial planner, I think it's critical, because it allows that extra voice to be added to the conversation. So if you have a deal, so if you go in and you're trying to get a deal with Pepsi, right? You want to do a deal with Pepsi. Pepsi comes in, they want to talk to you. You got to make sure that Pepsi, everything aligns with what you're trying to do. But at the same time, like, you don't want to be stubborn and pressed enough to where you end up having bad vibes or a bad business deal. You're doing bad business with Pepsi. You got to understand that, they have to get something out of this deal as well. So being able to be that filter in the middle to point out, hey, look, we're doing this, we're doing that. This is what that looks like. Being able to offer that unbiased decision, I think, is critical, to have somebody in your corner that provides that. But the NIL space, man, it's not as daunting as a lot of folks think. It really is. I mean, it's a lot to uncover and unpack as you are in it, because it is an extra burden of things to think about. So I get that from that aspect. But just from a simplicity side of what the NIL entails, it's as simple as you just signing a marketing agreement. Hey, they're going to pay you to do this, and you're going to be able to do that. But just being able to not stretch yourself too thin and balance, balance where you are as a student athlete in tandem with what you're doing in general outside. If you have a side business or something, with the whole NIL thing, I think is critical. But let me know what y'all think about it. And also looking at from the financial stability standpoint, I know, like I said, a lot of us just want some quick cash in our pocket, but understanding like not being able to just run and gun like that when it comes down to spending, because spending becomes a big thing, right? And I understand it. And I get it from an aspect of, you just got paid, you want to go out and you want to do things, but you got to be mindful about it, especially when you're preparing for that professional level. So this is for like a lot of basketball, football players, a lot of baseball players. This is just a discipline thing to train you for that next level. But that's the key part on that. But there are going to be a lot of obstacles. You're going to have a lot of things to filter out when it comes down to, the terms of a contract. It helps prepare you for a lot of different things, man. How to negotiate, what negotiation looks like, how to navigate the field, how to be a good business person, how to talk to people, because I think that's critical. Because a lot of us as athletes, sometimes we don't know how to talk to folks, and then it kind of can, it just comes off. I had a conversation recently with somebody that was like a business person, didn't expect them at all to have a good conversation about business, because he was an athlete, and that rubbed him wrong. That rubbed me wrong, because a lot of times that athletes get looked at anyway. But just understanding and how to maximize the opportunities is critical, because they're going to be, like I said, once again, a lot of folks that's going to try to get you to do anything, sign anything, to be a part of anything. But, being able to maximize on what's important to you is crucial. So, but anyway, as we kind of wrapping all of this up, I guess I'll share my 2 minutes. I feel like I had my 2 minutes already talking, but I'll re-summarize everything one more time with our 2-minute timer as we start. So yes, so to kick things off, to summarize everything, really understanding the NIL space, it's not that difficult to understand from a standpoint of just like thinking about the simplicity of it. It's just a marketing agreement you have with a partner, making sure that partner is the right person for you to marry, and it is a marriage. So being able to know that it's a this for that, and try not to stretch yourself too thin when it comes down to signing anything. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but also, you have to maintain eligibility, and you have to be in lines with not only your academics, but also yourself as an athlete. You don't want to take too much time away from actually, doing the training, going to work, do all that other stuff at practice. So as a financial planner, my role will be able to manage that, take that one less hat off your head, so that way you wouldn't have to think about that when it comes down to the deals. But make sure you kind of craft yourself a team, whether it's an agent, attorney, and financial guy. You want to make sure you have these three. I don't care how you structure them, but those three people in whatever structure. But when it also comes down to just understanding like the whole process of negotiating, this helps you negotiate deals, helps you kind of figure out how to navigate and be a good business person. But make sure everything aligns with the risks, with the rewards, or the goals that you have in the future, and understand everything is a risk and a reward. But everything has to align with what you're trying to build outside of this, right? Maximize on the brand, and understand that outside of after, the deal goes through, you get paid some money that comes in. You want to make sure you prepare for life after that. What happens after that, right? So cash flow planning, tax planning, investment planning, making sure all those three phases of that planning aspect, when it comes down to the finances, are put in place is crucial. And then following that up, really just balancing everything and making sure you're not jeopardizing anything. So making sure everything is just in line as a whole, and making sure everything is signed and sealed and put into place, and it's a this for that. And make sure you can leverage the branding opportunities for your reputation as a business person now that you've fallen into this world. So now I'll just hit the 2-minute timer right at the buzzer once again. But yes, so in conclusion, that's just pretty much what the NIL space is. But once again, man, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all for tuning into this episode. Hope it was insightful for you guys. I'm enjoying this, being able to share some tips. But feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment, man. Push the movement. Let people, who you might know might need this information. Just listen to it, man. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. But in the meantime, you all know how the motto goes. Always be clever. I'm out.